Go to the University of California, to any campus, and pay, I think it was $790 a year for fees. No tuition, $790 a year, and the California state system was about $210 a year.
Those are the days.
And that was the ideal of the board of the University of California.
But it used to be free when it was first, until about, I think, 68. There was no tuition.
Well, you know, they didn't call it tuition when I was there either. They used the fees for things like buses and things like student government.
I went to the State University of Michigan, and it was practically nothing for the tuition.
So part of what happened was the property tax revolution that happened in California kind of attacked the financing of the California state system, education system. But that's, I don't know what the current tuition is there, but it's been just effectively expanded. So,
That just shows where our values are. What could be of higher value than creating knowledge and reason in people's brains? That's
And
part of-
young
that's what
leaders who are
we call
prepared to
that.
step in and run a good world.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I was able to get my bachelor's degree from the University of California. And then I went, you know, in engineering, I was lucky enough to be able to get graduate assistantships. So I went to Iowa State and then University of Florida, and then here, University of Arkansas, each time getting scholarships along the way. So I was actually being paid to go to school as a graduate student. So I, you know, yeah, it is. It's a big investment.
It's a good investment,
Yeah.
best you can make.
So those are just some drive-by statements, I guess, responses. But I really do think that Puerto Rico and Virgin Islands have a real opportunity, or pose a real opportunity.
They do, don't they? But it may be that in Naomi Klein's book, Shock Doctrine, she describes how capitalists take disasters as an opportunity to make great fortunes. So it may be that this will be the opportunity that they see out there. What runs an individual generator, Terry? They're all over.
Well,
They're all over Puerto Rico.
they're mostly diesel.
Gasoline.
They're diesel.
But they could be replaced, they could be largely replaced by solar panels,
Oh,
easily,
yeah.
without storage. 60% of the consumption of diesel could be reduced by solar panels.
Yes.
Without storage, and with storage, it could be almost 100% reduced.
Wow.
And that's a huge, huge expense on the society. Puerto Rico has the second most expensive power after Hawaii.
And
So-
the island is so cut up that mini grids would be a perfect solution for them. And right now, most of the power generation is on one coast, and they have to ship it over a mountain range to get it to many of the consumers. That's a ridiculous solution.
Well, of course, this brings us back to our earlier talk about racial equity, because, and what Dick was just talking about the elites moving in and taking over an area. So is there any way to accomplish a switch to renewable energy with the population that's still there? Will that population be forced to leave and then elites move in and just take over the island?
Well, one of the problems, as I understand it, is that the utility company has a $9 million debt to banks. And so they're really beholden to the banks.
Right.
And it would take more capital to convert to a renewable energy system. The operating cost would be much less, negligible.
Right.
But the capital costs, they're going to be dependent on quite a bit of capital to accomplish anything like that.
And I was just reading about Puerto Rico. The banks are in that situation because we made it possible for corporations to go down there and not pay any taxes at all to support Puerto Rico.
Really? Well, Fred and Chris repeat several times that we have the resources and we have the money. Anytime there's an objection, well, can we have free education? Can we do this? Can we have free medical care? And they use statistics. I don't know if I said that. I did say the book was dense. It's full of statistics. It's full of individual examples, and it packs in evidence for their case that not only should we overthrow capitalism, but we can do it. Our human nature doesn't make us do it, and we've got the money to do it.
We need a different measure than gross domestic product.
Right.
That's right.
And you can have some ecological service as a measure. Such
That could
as-
be measured,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, externalities need to be priced in.
Right.
But happiness and pleasure and things like that, I don't know how they're measuring that from this index that they have, the international index. You all, thank you. Thank you very much. I'm not intending to cut conversation off here, I just want some questions. So, we sometimes go to 3:30. Does anyone else have anything to add they would like to add?
Yeah, I do. The things we're talking about here, the changes that felt like we could make in the 70s and the pushback against that, and now we're seeing the outcome of the pushback. And in my mind, this goes back to the George Lakoff value system that I've talked about many times, that this domination system that we see on the right that are really looking at the human race as something that's inherently some people superior and other people inferior, and that the superior people deserve everything and the inferior people deserve nothing. And that a lot of what I hear us talking about is the situation where that value system, that in order to make those changes where free education was a norm and things like that we've talked about, it really was that drive away from that domination system and looking for those nurturant parent value systems that Lakoff talks about. And that was very offensive to the domination values, because that really meant that you don't know who's worthy and who's not worthy anymore. If everybody gets a good education, how do you know who was worthy? And so it was a shock to them, and they didn't understand why that was a value.
Because it's not a birthright.
No.
It's just everybody's
Exactly.
right.
But I think that now that we are seeing the real implications of the domination system, and that domination system is feeding into the climate change disaster scenario we're facing, I think we need to be making the point that there was a reason we did that in the 70s, and there's a reason that we need to move that direction again. And I think that can be something that goes into the discussion about the vision that we have and the way we approach it, that I think needs to be part of the continuing conversation.
Absolutely. We're here. Sir,
Yeah,
would you give us your name, please?
my name's Paul Embry.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I think it's very hard to tear down the capitalistic system. It's so dominant, has so much money. Along with it are these, far-right people. They got all the weapons, and weapons now are so powerful that one person can exterminate a couple of hundred, not even using a nuclear bomb. And I wonder if it's possible to infiltrate the capitalistic system and change it from within. Now, one reason I feel, I'm very discouraged about our possibilities of changing in time to avoid catastrophic changes environmentally. I'm reading a book right now, I'm on the last chapter, done in '88, and it scares the hell out of me. Because it sounded like then, if we didn't change at that point dramatically, that we had very little chance of surviving.
What's the book you're reading, Paul?
Let's see, that one was, I can't remember. The other one that I just read recently, I think was, capitalism is if the earth mattered or something like that. Have you read that one?
Yeah.
And it says, look, capitalism does not consider the environment. It's not factored in, like you say, they don't have a number they can put on it, and so they just don't calculate it
It's
in.
inherent to the system that they don't. Yeah.
And the other thing that I've done is I had my aunt die in '99, and I looked at her. My mother or my mother didn't want the stock sold, but they sold all the stock and they ended up getting a bunch of cash. And I invested in all used stuff. I didn't buy anything new. And this is the problem with capitalism is, you know, it's the new stuff that's built in obsolescence and it's going to change so fast. These computers, you get one and it either breaks down or it's so obsolete. So what I've done is I've invested everything in used stuff. I bought almost nothing new.
Well, let's see what people here think about working from within for change.
Well, let me do the last one. So when my mother died, I got her stock. And I looked at it and she had, you know, oil stock and she had, you know, AT&T and a bunch of stocks I didn't like. But I realized she was living off the dividends. And this is a lot of the people that came through life like me where our parents were intelligent enough and stuff to invest in the market, which was something she didn't have to manage. So I've been dealing in the market for quite a while now, and I've invested in alternative energy stocks. I've gotten rid of my oil stocks, and I put them into other stocks. And about 3 years ago, I ran across this thing called yield codes. And what they're doing, the first one I invested in was in California, and they buy the solar plants, and then they pay a dividend on the production of the solar power. And they say, look, these plants are going to go for 20 years. They don't take any fuel. Their dividends, I've got dividends over 7% now in about 4 different stocks. And this is the way to get into the system, I think. Invest in good technologies and have some money coming back so your investment's making something while you change the system. I don't understand why, you know, these dividends are so high. The only reason I can figure it is the market doesn't understand it like we do. That, you know, the other one that I've done well on is that they pick up trash in New York City and recycle it and bring the metal out and burn some of it and stuff. And their profit went down because of the drop in the recycling started dropping, so they dropped down, but they kept their dividend at $1 because the guy says, look, we get $1 worth just picking up people's trash. You don't have to do all this other stuff. And so anyway.
I think you put your finger on one of the greatest things we can do, but I don't have experience as an investor, but it's getting inside the board of directors of companies and influencing them there. And you see that every once in a while at Walmart, don't you? There's a president who will come to.
But the other thing I've realized is these old family companies like Ford Motor Company and Walmart, they have a conscience. If this is a corporation that's not a part of an old family business, the chances of them having conscience, I mean, it's the dollar for them guys. But people that have their name on them, like Ford, the guys behind that, they still have some influence on the company. And
other ideas you all have?
One other thing I'd mention is, you know, so 2 potential future models are Puerto Rico and Virgin Islands. Currently, my understanding is Costa Rica is close to 100% renewable energy right now.
Wow.
And Nicaragua is about to turn into 100% renewable energy. There's a third country in the Americas that was named that I can't remember. But those 2, and they're neighbors, Nicaragua and Costa Rica, and they're also on opposite ends of the health scale.
The interesting thing was that Nicaragua would not join the Paris Accords.
Right.
And their reason was, they are not enough.
Right.
They need to be more stringent.
Oh,
But unfortunately, their renewable energy is a huge dam.
Right.
Nonetheless.
They're trying to.
Well, hey, hydro is good,
Yeah.
especially if you don't have a drought.
So we do have some models.
And tossed into that, the idea of worker-directed cooperatives, you know, as another part of that model that's kind of touching on the capitalist system, but is a little bit withdrawn from it. You know, that was an interesting thought, Paul.
Well, in Nicaragua, there is sort of a worker cooperative up in Hinotega. What's the name of it? Anyway, they sell coffee. It's a coffee plantation that include, the workers are also owners. The fellow who set it up, Salvanegra, yeah, that's right. So Black Forest, he's a German national who moved to Nicaragua, set up this company, and it's workers own part of a good part of the company, a large part of the company.
well, of course, from the very beginning of this book, this is a major idea of theirs, is cooperation, cooperatives as the way to change this world and have democracy, too.
I was trying to say something.
There's an important old book that has some good things to tell us still today, I think, about how many things they get there from here. It's by a British economist named E.F. Schumacher, and it's called Economics as If People Matter.
That's the subtitle, Small is Beautiful.
Small is beautiful is the main title, that's
Yeah.
correct.
Yeah.
And it's a classic, as you can tell by the fact that several people recognize that. It was written in the 1970s.
Yeah, it's a long time ago.
And boy, it's a good book, and it's not hard to read, and it enunciates a lot of the principles we're talking about. And it's sort of how you can get there, starting from our current economic system, or our current capitalist system, and then putting values on the things that matter, namely people. And you get pretty close to where these guys are headed in this book.
Well, the E.F. Schumacher Society continued and are very active. They started the local currency in the Berkshires, called the Berkshire, and it's one of the more successful local currency
That's
systems.
So this goes on, and it's something we can connect with.
There are many aspects of capitalism that have not been brought up yet this afternoon. Advertising, for example, is one of the greatest engines of our capitalism. And we can strike through education, advertising, if our public schools would teach analysis of commercial advertising, but they don't.
Yeah, there's some great films out there.
They don't dare to do great films, books, articles. That's been well researched, but it's not being taught.
I've often said that the state requirement that college students have algebra is wrong-headed. What they ought to have is statistics, so that they understand
Yes.
what they're being told. You know, and I've found that students that I taught had no idea of margin of error or anything like that. They, this is 2% better than the alternative, and what was the margin of error? Well, it was like 5%. Is there really a difference? And I just had a doctoral student who, it's 43 versus 44%. I said, did you do a statistical analysis? They're probably the same. And she insisted that she had done a statistical analysis, but she didn't include it in her dissertation. I said, I want to see it. I want to see the data. I want to see the analysis. Because I don't believe there's any difference.
Boy, I really support that. I was talking about peace. I think the way to peace more than anything else is rationality as the basis for discussion, rather than ideology or power or being eloquent or whatever it is. It should be rationality. If we can talk to each other rationally, we're just disagreeing. We don't have to fight. We can just disagree and make our arguments. If we can't make those arguments that persuade people rationally, then they're probably not very good arguments. We need to drop a lot of the ideology and make more sensible, evidence-based, rational arguments. And statistics is a good start.
I thoroughly agree with you. There's only one problem there. Humans are not rational. They're rationalized.
They can
and
learn.
They can learn.
They can learn.
But most don't.
It's called science.
Well, you know, Republican war on science.
Yeah.
How do you, in any society that has any pretension to rationality, how can you conduct a war on science? And
It
yet
should be
the
part of
Republicans
everybody's
have-
education. That's where education comes in.
Scientists to manufacture hypotheses.
Right.
And they test those hypotheses,
Right.
and they move forward.
Right.
They never move backward. I don't like genealogy, because it's always moving backward. And whereas the DNA molecule did help genealogy.
Yeah, sure.
Well, that's one of the things I investigated in my paper, is why people do not value the future. And there's a saying, we don't inherit the
That's what
planet.
scientists do.
We don't inherit the planet from our ancestors. We borrow it from our children. And the Republican Party has absolutely rejected that idea.
Yes. And all of this, to those of you who believe that an engine of working through from within is our educational system, all of this can be taught, can't it, in education, but it's avoided largely, it seems to me. Critical thinking we're talking about, aren't we?
Yeah.
Well, then there was
Critical thinking
a
is
study
the word.
done recently that found that a majority of college students have not improved their ability to use logic,
Really?
and rational analysis.
Yeah.
That's sad.
During the 4 years or however long it takes them to graduate.
Yeah.
And that's shocking.
Yeah.
It is.
That's shocking.
Well, I find it, very few of my undergraduates know what a peer-reviewed journal article is. They've never even heard of it.
Somehow we need to learn that the object is not to get everybody to agree and all be of a single mind or anything like that. The object is to agree to disagree agreeably. It's okay to disagree, as long as it's on a rational basis and you're not accusing the other person of being a bad person because they disagree with you. Let people have their thoughts, but then ask them to defend them with something real. I think that's the way of peace.
Could I just ask if somebody has finished their copy of the current book and would not mind loaning it out, would like to read it, or at least part of it? And I'll just throw that out there. When you finish the book, if you don't mind loaning it out.
Good idea. Let's pass these books around. And let's see, I loaned my extra copy to somebody here today. Thank you. Thank you for taking it. And you all, thank you for coming. This has been wonderful. This board has been going on for 15 years. Thank you for bringing it back. Yes, Green Capitalism was just returned. It's a wonderful book. Green Capitalism is a version of the book that we read for today, without footnotes, without index. It's just hammers away at Whereas we saw today that the book we have today had hundreds of topics or subtopics. This book is lean, mean. If the subtitle is The God That Failed. Anybody want to borrow this today? Sure. Please, thank you. Oh, thank you.
If you get a Kindle, you can buy your books at about half price, and then you can blow off the print. A lot of us are at the age where we need that.
Well, you know, it's like America putting me on to, you can go get an app for your computer and just get 3 books or
What I do is I get audiobooks, so that when I am exercising, or when I am getting very good in bed.
How you doing?
For 10 minutes, I'm listening to 2 weeks, you can
I've got Madoff and Williams, chapter 1. If anyone wants it, outline of chapter 1.
Teresa. She's a
Thanks for coming. I really appreciate it. I was born in Philadelphia, 34.